Okay, so good morning, everyone. Everyone here, thank you, third grade team. I just want to go over the roles that we're playing today. I'm going to be the facilitator. Ms. Torres will be the recorder, and Ms. Beckley is the timekeeper. We're also going to talk about how this meeting is going to go. We're going to use the RTI grade level protocol to go through our students. You already have a list of the students that we're going to talk about today. And teachers, grade chairs, there's a form in your folder because you need to take notes. It's the form on the right and it's white. Those are the children that we're going to talk about. You need to take notes on all of those areas. So we're going to begin, and I'm going to share the spotlight with Ms. Eshe because she would normally be the facilitator. So we're going to basically go through this process on the three children. So Ms. Eshe, could you first talk about our first child on the sheet?
Okay, so our first child is Adrian Johnson, who was brought initially to the grade level team because of some behavior concerns in the classroom. In both his homeroom, which is his math class, as well as his ELA room, which is Ms. Whitman's class. Ms. Sihio is here, and she can speak to the areas of concern that you brought to the table.
Okay. So I know that with Adrian, we know that he has a lot of previous years issues as far as what his strengths and weaknesses are in the classroom. So I know I talked to Mom initially and came down with some ideas, what she thought were some ideas for him, what she noticed at home, what were some observations, and then I brought my observations of him to the table and said, look, let's focus on a few of those issues. Because he does, I mean, we know him, he's constantly out of his seat, never asks when he talks, he just speaks whenever he wants to, is never on task, has very low interest when it comes to the classroom setting. So we said that we were going to target just two behaviors. So I know we came up with a form. I consulted with Ms. White about some interventions to put in place because initially I was just tracking everything he did because I wasn't sure what to do. So I have maybe like 10 days of just frequent behaviors. What am I seeing? I had like up to 6 different behaviors, and I would tally mark every time he offended one of them. I didn't have any accommodations at the time or interventions at the time because I was just kind of stuck. So I talked to Ms. White and we said we were going to focus on just 2. So the 2 that we focus on is raising our hand before speaking and staying in our seats unless given permission. So
Can I pause you? We need to know, why do you think these behaviors occur?
Okay.
We did talk about it. Share.
So my personal thing is, I honestly think he's just very hyperactive. That's something that, of course, we're not allowed to tell the parent. So from there, how can we allow him to take ownership of those behaviors?
Yeah. So we basically felt that it was because he's extra hyperactive,
Right.
That's why he's doing these things.
Right.
And so based on that information, we came up with some behavior modification strategies. Could you share those strategies with us?
So the one strategy that I tried a few initially, but this is the one that works, so I just want to talk about this one. We do nonverbal cues. It's simple stick. They represent 2 different icons. One is having a seat, and the other one is raising his hand before speaking. And so how it works is they have a tracking sheet. He has up to 5 opportunities within the hour to receive a circle or a slash. If, for instance, Adrian comes right in and is talking, he doesn't do the initial routine, I can say, initially he's not paying any attention to me, so I'll say Adrian, and then I'll show the sign that I need. So I'll ask him to sit down. So I'll just, Adrian, and he's already understood that this means to go sit down. Sometimes he gets a little funny and says, oh, let me go grab a book because the boy's holding a book. But as long as you're getting a book and sitting down, I honestly think that you get the point. So say he does it without any, this rebuttal, I'll draw a circle on number 1, and then we continue with our lesson. I keep moving. Then I notice Adrian gets up and wants to go talk to student A. So now he's, again, out of his seat, and now he's talking. Well, he's probably moving to get to them. If I say I just want him to stop talking, I'll put the stick up. Or I'll walk by him, give him some proximity control, and just tap the table or tap his shoulder, put my hand on him, show it to him. And the good thing about it is the kids don't make a big deal about it. They know it's his. They don't laugh at him when it's this kind of, redirection. So he'll sit down, or initially he wants to raise his hand because the icon says to raise your hand. And so what I've told him is, if you want to speak at all, you need to raise your hand. I don't care if you have a comment, a question, anything. You need to raise your hand if you want to say anything out of your mouth. So initially the response kids think of when they raise their hand is, I have a question. So he's starting to think, wait, I don't have a question. So we'll stop, put his hand down, and then stop talking. So that has been very effective.
So based on your data here,
Yes.
and you're tracking it, this has been an effective intervention?
Right, and to me personally, because I've built the relationship with my kids, I'm more of like an aura kind of relationship with the kids when it comes to management. I'm very much the kind that's not gonna say a lot of, please go sit down, do you think we're gonna do this? These are the expectations, please sit down. I'm very direct. So for me initially, I was very nervous about it because just my facial expressions are like, or sometimes when he thinks that I'm playing with him, I have to give the sign and the look, like sit down, But again, he knows my natural facial expressions, so that has worked. There's sometimes where he disregards it, or he forgets. Just because he's so hyperactive, he'll raise his hand, stop talking, then 30 seconds later, back at it. But then there are times where they're just trying to be defiant. It has been rarely the case. And I think the only difference that I'm noticing is between Miss Wortham and my class. It's because we have two different teaching styles. It's not as effective, but there are times where it is.
So if we're thinking about these behaviors, what would our next steps be for the differentiation between your class and Ms. Wortham's class, or any other class setting that he's in? Because we realize that it's working, one, because of who you are, and two, because of the consistency. But if that's not something that's gonna operate within the other classrooms, what do you think, or what could we do for our next step?
So to further this tracking form, that I realized that there's actually rewards accompanying to this that I initially didn't need to give because it was working. So if he doesn't know there's rewards, then why present those things as something like reality? So maybe with another class, well, actually I told Ms. Wortham, this is how I'm doing it, like kind of let her watch me and see how it works and how my demeanor is, how many chances I might be giving him. Because you keep doing this, it's like, it's not gonna, you have to understand that they're children, one day there's different factors to what and the way children behave. So I said to her that, she would do it, X, do it, X. And so we looked at that and said, okay, well, I'm giving him a reminder. And then if he doesn't do it, then I'll tell him or I'm talking to him.
So your added layer is a reminder first.
Yes.
Before we document. So he needs to go to a little more intensive support, not just the card, but the card plus a verbal reminder.
I'm noticing on your data, you notice most days and weeks that there was a deterioration in the afternoon hours, and that we can consider time of day, and perhaps build in some supports for afternoon. Also, a lot of this, what this is showing me is impulse control, obviously, on top of hyperactivity, because if he gets a book, looking at the book, knowing that that's not the activity, but he just sees it and goes for it, so we can look up some impulse control, or some strategies for impulse control as well.
And guess where you can look up those strategies for impulse control? The same place we found that strategy, which is Goldbook. And everybody has access to Goldbook. Does everybody know about Goldbook? So when you go into Goldbook, because that's an added layer for him, look up impulse control activities that will support him. in that, so you're adding a layer of support to the card.
Okay.
Okay, so, based on what we see this is working, we don't need to move him for these behaviors?
No.
Are we ready to target an additional behavior, or should we still continue on these behaviors?
I think so. We've been doing it for going on 4 weeks now, and we've been fairly effective. So I think we can focus on a new behavior,
So which is the new behavior you would like to focus on?
complete assignment.
Complete assignments. So our next steps as a team, not today, is to go and research some strategies for completing assignments. So when we meet again, we'll be able to say, hey, here's a strategy for completing assignments, and we can do another update on the 2 strategies that you're working on. Great job, thank you. So in this instance, in 12 minutes, we did 1 student. The meeting's supposed to last for 30 minutes, so we can actually do another student. And because we have 5 minutes, we're gonna begin another student.
Okay, so the next student we're bringing to the table today is Matias Castro. Matias's initial data showed that he is performing below level, far below level in both reading and mathematics. So let me get his folder here. So Mr. LaKyle and I looked at our initial TRC along with, classroom observation and class.
And pause, right now, she's being the classroom teacher presenting the data. So that's the role that they're on now, not the facility.
And in terms of reading, not only did he test far below at level C at the beginning of this year, but I also looked back to his grade 2 data and noticed that he began and ended the year on a B last year, so there was not a lot of progress last year. So this told us we needed to be pretty intense in our interventions. So we took a look at letter sounds initially at that level. This is what we're looking at, and we were able to determine that Matias does not have all of his letter sounds, and especially those CVC and short vowel sounds. So that's where we began. In my classroom, he's receiving several